Hey there, this is Bob Nalbandian with the Shockwave Skull Sessions podcast and the Inside Metal documentary series. Just want to let you know you are tuned into Poppitt's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition, another episode of Poppitt's Corner. And of course, I got the one and only Mr. Shannon Fry here. Shannon, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Good to be back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what we thought we'd do today, and this is a topic that you've been wanting to discuss, you've been jonesing for it. So, here it is. We're going to talk about we're going to ask the question and just hopefully get some sort of footing on it. I don't know if we'll completely answer this, but we're still going to talk about it, still going to discuss it. We're going to see if having not having a label, but if being on a label is as relevant, is it relevant today like it was back then, or and are record labels kind of still relevant? Is there still a need to have them? So if you're ready, I'd love to get started with you on this and just
All
ask you
right.
this. Now, in your opinion, are labels still relevant?
I want to say yes, but I want to say no at the same time. It seems that everything a label does nowadays, the bands and artists seem to be able to do themselves. The only things that I see that really it seems like it's a catch 22 in the sense, but the distribution of physical media and advertising. It seems that, but since the industry has changed so much, it seems that there's there's really nowhere to advertise except social media. And social media is not the be all end all of a band's career or an artist's career. And it seems that a label looks at the social media to sign bands that bands are already doing themselves, except for the two things that I had mentioned, the distribution and the advertising. But everything else, it seems that a band or an artist can do themselves, and it's a really tricky situation. But I don't quite understand that aspect of it yet. So, but I want to say that labels really aren't needed.
Interesting.
How about
Now,
you? What do you think?
well, let me go off of a point that you made and branch off it, and I'll answer the question. Where you mentioned there's nowhere to advertise, and I kind of agree and disagree with that because I really feel, and I want to get your opinion on this, is the next way of advertising. What's it going to be in? Because, obviously, I'm going to go off of the podcasting thing. Can you ever foresee a podcaster being like that? You know how we have Joe Rogan and that's a huge media or a huge medium to be heard. And I'm just kind of curious if that will ever happen within our music community in general.
That part seems to be sort of already happening. I mean, the biggest guy we have is somebody that I'd rather not mention because he's on Sirius XM and he doesn't deserve the mention. But there's a lot of smaller podcasts like this one, Poppitt's Corner, and there's a few others, and there's online radio shows and stuff that kind of do the same thing. And then there's the CMS podcast network, and they seem to Chris and Neely or whatever his name is. They seem to be doing quite a lot, but I just think that that's just a small portion because when you put an advertisement, like I'm going to use example Metal Maniacs or um, some of those old magazines, SOD magazine or whatever, you could buy advertisement, and however, whatever size you bought, it would go inside that magazine, and that magazine would be distributed everywhere, and it was up to the consumer to buy that at their Tower Records that was at the time, or their local record store that there was at the time, or their grocery store that there was at the time, when they would really pack the shelves with the metal magazines. But it just seems that there's really nowhere to go. I mean, there's still one or two here and there, Revolver and a few other magazines that are still in print, but they don't really focus on what we're doing either. You know what I mean? They don't really have that. Well, the thrash, the death metal, they're more into the Tool and the Dream Theater and the Avenged Sevenfold. That's what I see when I'm looking at these magazines. I mean, okay, occasionally there'll be like a Dark Funeral or something in there, but it's not vast like I remember it.
Is that because the consumer has chosen those genres, or is it because the magazine have chosen to support those genres instead of the death metal and black metal and thrash metal and whatnot that you mentioned? That's what I want to kind of get to too, because I don't know any of that stuff. I don't know how magazines and sites like that work when it comes to, because it seems like their only thing is just the bottom dollar, which is probably why they're still in business today. But at the
Hmm.
same time, is there a give and take where like you can still do both? I don't know.
There's the way of looking at it as there a band doesn't have enough fans, or enough people know about the band, and I get the fact that maybe some promoters or booking agents will throw different styles of bands on different tours and different shows to make that show bigger, and I get that. But maybe, since I don't want to say I'm an elitist, but I kind of guess in a way I am. So I don't know. Why would I mean, why wouldn't I want somebody that listens to those kind of bands listening to Avenger? But at the same time, it's why should those people who listen to those bands listen to my band or your band or whatever? Because it's such a total drastic change of styles, you
I
know?
think it could be done though, man. I think maybe it is our fault that like we're in the predicament that we're in with having that attitude and whatnot. Where like, because I would want as many people. The goal is to play the world, as Mike Abominator says. So, in order to do that, it's kind of you want people like that to listen to. You want as
Yeah,
many people like as possible to listen to your band. So why not? Yeah, they might like this other said band that I might not like, but they're still listening to us and whatnot and still supporting us. So I think at the end of the day, that part doesn't really matter to me on what other bands that those said people are listening to. But it seems like the magazines are only focusing on those said bands. And
right.
I was just curious if that had to do with money, because, or is it because the magazines and advertising and publications themselves have only chosen to do that because they see
That's what
that
I
that
think.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I think, because those are the bands that are selling the most. The ones that are selling the most are the ones that are getting in there, because now they're able to sell the magazines because those are the bands that are selling. Whereas Madrost, Avenger of Blood, Fueled by Fire, Mantic Ritual, whoever, they aren't on that same uh, uh, listening wavelength, so to say, that same platform. We're on totally different platforms, more underground. So, I mean, but that's only one or two magazines. There's no more Metal Maniacs. Everything is online. Well, why do you want to purchase a banner? Well, how many people go to that website anyway? Not really a lot. It seems that everybody's attention span is so small, so minuscule small, that it's tough to reach those audiences. So no one is really getting that chance unless the band is pushing themselves in a different way. And that different way seems to be social media. But who really but then you're back again against the that minuscule attention span. Well, we'll use Facebook as an example. You post something and 10 minutes later it's gone. So you miss that opportunity or whatever. So I don't know. It's just really hard.
Right. Well, here's a question too. Do you think having so many hubs is another reason why we're in the predicament that we're in? Because, you're mentioning, one or two said magazine names or one or two, said websites and whatnot. That was a general hub for everything. Now we have 50 million of them. So it's like, where do people go for that stuff? You
Hmm.
know?
So the only thing to do is, I guess, you make your own website or you make your own whatever, and you lead everyone to your sales thing. So that's why I'm saying, like, why would a label be needed except for that, that advertising and that physical media distribution? Everything else is at the palm of your hands. Everything.
Well, let me ask you this though. Most bands kind of are lazy in that factor though. They don't you know this, dude. Come on now.
Mhm.
You see it all the time where bands release some killer material, killer record that's just as great as all the classics from back in the day, and they don't advertise for it, right? So I think a lot of bands kind of almost rely on a label to do that. And case in point, you know, not with us in general, but just getting signed recently. I already knew that, like, of what I wanted the label to do for this specific release, right? So I wasn't relying on a label to do everything for me because I still had to, for just from talking with you guys and learning, just getting signed isn't the end all be all. It's like you still that's when the hard part kind of comes in, and you have to kind of take what you've learned even before getting signed and whatnot, and still apply it. If you get signed and you're not ready for it, you're fucked. And I've seen a lot of bands get signed and just only rely on the label, and it's like then it becomes this thing of, your stuff doesn't really get as known. If I can be so blunt and honest, I've just seen it happen so many times with a lot of my buddies' bands, and I didn't want that to happen to us. So I took that and applied it to us in order to prevent that from happening. And I think having that has really helped myself and Madras kind of grow. If Does that make sense? So I'm not relying solely on a label to do everything, right?
Right, right, right,
So
right,
I think there are, I think record labels too. Going back to answer your question, I think record labels are still needed. They are still relevant, but I think the band has to push it as well. I think if you're only going to define, this as relying solely on the record label, I don't think that exists. I don't think that needs to exist. Even getting signed to these big name labels, I think bands need to go on platforms like this and promote it still. I don't think that they should just sit back and have the label just do everything. Because at the
no,
end of the
right,
day, like, even some of the big name bands, especially in the black metal world, that don't really do a lot of, I mean, I think they still do, like, a lot of press when it comes to promoting the new record, even if they don't do live shows at all or anything of that nature.
right, right.
So
But
I think the bands are to blame as well, and they need to kind of step their game up to making, just not relying solely on a record label, I think, is the key.
right, well, you can't ever rely solely on a record label,
And
ever.
and you've had experiences, obviously, with a lot of different labels and whatnot, and I'm sure you didn't sit on your ass
No,
and rely solely on that specific said label when, one of your records came out. You probably, and I don't know what the climate was in 2007, 8, 9, as far as how a band would advertise themselves or market that said album. So maybe you can help me fill in those gaps and whatnot. But I think you probably would forge ahead and go on some platforms and write how they would give you like a magazine would give you what 12 or 13 or 14 questions of that said album, and you'd only have that. You'd have to write it all out. I'm sure you did that. I'm sure you didn't just sit on your ass and have the label do everything.
Right, right. But at the same time, okay, like in the modern day, as of right now, what any label seems to be doing right now is is still the exact same thing that the band or artist can do themselves. Okay, like said record label has another record label in Greece, another record label in Germany that they trade back and forth with. Sure, great. But the artist or the band could have contacted them themselves and sent their albums over there for distro, you know what I mean? And you would get the exact same outcome as what that label is doing. Now we're talking on a smaller scale label, right? Not and and then we're not talking the 360 deal. We're just talking the license to duplicate
Distro,
and
yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So like to me, those labels aren't needed. The distro labels aren't needed. The bigger labels, they seem to be doing something that since they've been doing it so long, Century Media, Metal Blade, Nuclear Blast, Roadrunner, Earache, they all seem to be, since they've been doing it so long, they just seem to evolve. But where they've evolved is really, really weird because, okay, they're able to throw their stuff on Spotify and they're able to throw their stuff on YouTube with their own channel and stuff. But they're the ones like they have their own PR uh, side of things, so they're able to set the interviews up. They're able to, you know what I mean, and
But everything is internal, I think there. But they also, have other PR firms that they use that me and you can utilize too. It's just how
right,
much
right,
money you want to put into it.
right, right.
Um, so like, and I completely disagree with the distro labels. I think those are more crucial now than ever before because if you give all the power to the bigger labels, you're fucked. So there needs
Hmm.
to be a balance of power as far as that goes. And I think I'd much rather just be, and I've told you this off the air, I'd much rather just be in control of my own stuff. That's more important to me than giving up said control and power to the label who now owns your stuff. Do you know what
Right,
I
right,
mean?
right, right.
So
Exactly. Yeah,
so I would just much
but
rather, get on the, I think having a label like that it just gives the band more clout, and I don't think a band could reach out to those said distros to to give them their stuff. They almost need to be on a label in order to break down that said barrier. Does that make sense? So like
okay.
they
Well,
wouldn't
here's
take
where
you as serious if you weren't on a label. They wouldn't take you as seriously. And it's weird because it actually is true and I've experienced this.
right, but when you did that earlier, did you say you had your own record label, say Madras Records or whatever it is? And
No.
see, there's the thing though. You, what I'm saying is, no, those smaller labels don't need to exist because you can always just throw something on your CD that says, I don't know, I'm fragrance bar warmer records, right?
Right.
You're
Right.
technically signed. You signed yourself. You're on a label. Said label sends email to Rotten Breath Records in wherever country that Rotten Breath Records is that I just made up, right?
It probably exists. Probably a label that exists. So go ahead.
I'm sure there is after this. But that's what I mean. Like, you don't need this so-called label that isn't doing anything that you yourself cannot do yourself.
And most of those said labels don't even do that. Most of those labels don't even advertise that way. Most of
Right.
them just kind of keep it all internally and then trade with their friends. I've seen that happen more times than ever before too. So, no label that I've ever worked with does
Most
that.
of these distro labels is one or two guys, and they're mostly CD collectors. So they'll act like, okay, they're so and so label, and this so and so label over here they're gonna trade 5 CDs. This label's banned for this label's banned. Well, said dude that owns this label doesn't have these CDs, so he's gonna take one or two for his own self, right? Because he's a CD collector. Like, I've experienced this. I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, okay, fine. You're the one paying to have it distributed or duplicated, rather. Fine. But, you know, to me, it's just a collector scheme of some sort. That to me, it's not even needed. You do it yourself. Here, label. You want to buy our CD? You know, I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. I'm not saying all labels, but those minuscule underground labels that you can do yourself. I'm trying not to name label names.
No, and it's all good. It's all good. We won't. So, but, I want to go to a clip real quick. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long, where I did an interview with Mike Abominator a few episodes ago. I think this was like 6 to 8 months ago. And I found this said clip, and I kind of want to play it and get your take on it, and we can kind of branch off of these points and how he views a record label. So, check this out. Dude, so you mentioned all these labels. Were you working with all these labels and whatnot? And I'm just kind of curious for you. Um, I mean, labels still play a part even in today's world, and people may not even realize it. So, in your opinion, what do labels do that's the most helpful in your guys' camp? Maybe that you have trouble kind of getting over some humps that labels can literally just blast through it and it's no problem.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the label people have the patience and it's almost like the drive to put up with the fucking bullshit of getting this stuff out there. It makes it so much easier because even the small label that I run is a fucking pain in the ass. I just don't I don't mind getting orders and sending them out and when communicating with people. That's not what I'm talking about, but trying to coordinate stuff and get all the ducks in a row and getting shit in line and communicating with people and trying to get shit done is really annoying because I'm more of a fucking artistic asshole in that sense. I'd rather be in the jam room with my boys fucking creating some fucking death noise. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best right there. I mean, that's the reason why I'm doing it. It's that escape of like, you're in the fucking room with your crew and you're just like, fuck, man. That's like one of the, you know what I'm talking about, dude. That's one of the best feelings in the fucking world, man. That's why we're doing this shit. And then, obviously the live performance, that live ritual, so to speak, quote unquote. There's nothing like it, man. It's that high of the energy of watching people go off to what you're performing or whatnot. I mean, it's in the blood. So I'd rather focus on all that shit than trying to communicate with pressing plants and designers and doing all this stuff. No, don't get me wrong. I do all that stuff. I do all that stuff behind the scenes. It's not my favorite shit to do. The labels are just so crucial with that because they're very important people, very unique people that are able to pull that shit off, And I mean, some of these people I'm friends with and watch them grow into these, bigger labels and very successful. It's fucking cool, man. I mean, you know me, man, I'm pretty fucking supportive. So I like seeing fucking people succeed, because basically you surround yourself with people that succeed, you're going to fucking succeed too. A lot of positive reinforcement there, fucking positive energy, getting shit done, getting the bullshit out of the way. That's what it's all about. So if you got good label support, honest people with conviction and drive, and they're doing it for the fucking right reasons, they're not trying to fucking take money out of your pocket, doing shit behind your back, bullshit practices. They're just straight up fucking honest. I mean, they're fucking homeboys, man, or homegirls, whatever. They're fucking family,
Absolutely.
They got your back, and they go to bat for you. It's fucking killer. I mean, the labels are fucking crucial. And these days, they're so fucking crucial and important.
So there you go, right? So obviously he feels that they're crucial and important, as you just heard. So
The thing is, he never went into why. So you're left guessing. You're like, that's the only thing with that, because what he was saying is that, yeah, he would rather be in the jam room. Okay, any musician would rather be in the jam room. He's definitely correct on that part. And the fact that he said, doing up the orders and get them shipped and doing all, it's all a pain in the ass. It's only a pain in the ass if you don't care. If you don't, I'm not saying he doesn't care, because Mikey cares about everything. But it just seems that, okay, you have 4 people in a band, 3 people in a band, 5 people in a band. Every one of those people should be doing something to expand what you're doing, right? You're all a part of your band. Why are you not all a part of succeeding, right? So one dude sends the stuff out. One of the dudes helps with the ordering. One guy, you just split the stuff up. You're all involved anyway.
But let me tell you this. Most bands, and you know this, dude, there's always one guy that does everything, because even when they delegate it out, it still doesn't get done. I mean, there are things that I wish that my own band would get done that, would help me out with. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's almost like if I don't do it, then it doesn't get done. So you're left with, like, it's got to get done at the end of the day. Doesn't matter who does it. And if you've already tried that and you're still getting frustrated and it's still not getting done, then you technically tend to do it all yourself anyways, right? And then you don't give a fuck. You just do it, and you much rather know that it's getting done the right way and that it's actually fucking getting done.
But
Right?
you
Most bands
doing
don't
it
do that.
yourself,
Mhm.
you doing it yourself means it's getting done the right way,
Correct.
because you're the one doing it. A record label, who knows? Who knows how they're doing shit? You know? That's how I'm seeing it.
And
Sorry.
it's a good point. No, I'm not no need to be sorry on it. It's a good point, and I think he is right in the sense of having to communicate with, like, coordinate with plants, and that is a pain in the ass. I'm not gonna lie, that's a fucking pain in the ass.
I'm
Um,
sure.
so there are little things like even making lyric videos and getting them out there, and they have their own fan base, and sometimes they know the right fan base to push your band in, right? Sometimes they know that stuff, and that's really crucial in why having a label is still relevant today, because they know that said audience that your band is gonna pertain to, right? And I'm not saying they all do this. I'm just saying when you find the right one that does that, hang on to it. So
Mhm.
I I can agree and disagree with your reasonings for why a label isn't as necessary today, but I also know the other side of it to an extent as well. I think it's one of those things that's it's a tough question to kind of answer.
Hmm. Especially, well, here's another thing. I'm not saying I'm against labels. I'm not. I know everything up to this point probably sounds like that, but I'm not. I'm not against labels. It's very cost effective when they're the ones pressing the CDs. That always helps. If they have the PR behind them, that's great too. If they have a staff behind them, that it's just like being in a band. Each person that works for that label has a different job that they're doing. It's the same with being in a
Mhm.
band, where just saying, if you had your own label, you're doing the same thing they're doing. It's just costing you a little more. But in the
Sure.
end, it comes out you're paying for it anyway. In
Sure.
the end, I
And
mean,
I want to go back to a point though that you just literally just mentioned, where having a team behind you, and that's crucial for everything, dude.
mhm,
I mean, do you remember all these kind of, even having the thrash metal scene and the new wave British heavy metal scene and the new wave of thrash scene? That was all a collection of fucking bands working as a team to help that thing grow. And I'm not seeing a lot of that. So having a label kind of will kind of help make that a reality. Having another person outside of the band doing stuff is so crucial. I'm only speaking for me personally. It's helped me out tremendously to be
mhm,
on the label that I'm on,
mhm.
and knowing that, you know they're doing stuff behind the scenes that I'm not, because I do know they do a lot behind the scenes, because I'm getting emails about it. I'm seeing results from it, so it is working for us personally. But I also think that we need to just keep we need to do more as a team effort. That's it overall in general. It doesn't matter if it's on a label or in our own community or in our own bands. That's where when things grow, is working together, not relying on one guy to do fucking everything.
Right. But that involves the entire metal community
And we all
working
know that ain't
together.
gonna happen.
That don't happen no more. No. Now everyone's for themselves and everything's a competition.
Yeah, we can do an entire episode just on that alone,
Right.
right? I mean, fuck it. I'll get into some of that right now. That's just what I've noticed and why certain scenes thrive, because you have all that. It's not everything hitting at the right moment. I think that's part of it, but I think it's also working together.
Mhm. Right.
You know, I that again, I could be completely wrong, but that's just what I've noticed from, kind of just looking around and being a part of said scenes and whatnot, and just seeing where they end up, the mark that they end up leaving on the world. It pays it just You got to work as a team, and I think having a label go to bat for you, that's part of your team now. So
Right.
having everything internally, while I do agree that it can help, but I also think having outside sources helps, is crucial. And
Oh,
that's when
absolutely.
a label would do that. But I don't think you should solely rely on a label, because again, that's one or two guys or three or four. It's You're not relying on a team still. You're relying on that one guy to push everything, right? Sometimes, like you just said, a label is one guy, two guys to do it, and it's that's the same as if I was doing it. I'm one guy, right? You're one guy doing it, so I guess to branch off of your point of like that, yeah, you could do it. You could start a label doing it, but you're still that one guy doing it. So having that team, I think, is the way to go. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, yeah,
S-
yeah.
And most bands won't do that. Most bands will rely on that one guy or two guys to do everything. And you're still left in the same position that you would be if you weren't signed. And you have now less control of your own material.
Right, right, right. But then when you say being signed,
Mhm.
okay, by a label, but you yourself could be your own label, so therefore you're signed. Do you know what I mean? So it but it's still it's the same scenario. It's the same scenario, except yes, so over here you have other guys as part of your team as opposed to you collectively doing it. But if one person, okay, we'll use Avenger, 5 members in the band at the moment, right? I know for a fact 2 members are just not into that and don't want to be involved in that. They would just those dudes I know would rather be in the studio and doing what they do. The other 3 of us, the other 3 of us, I know we're all diehards and willing to do whatever it takes for us to succeed, not just myself. I know I have 2 others that are willing to push the same amount as I've been pushing in the past. So I think it could still work. And that's my point. I'm not against record labels at all, as I said earlier. I think record labels are relevant and can be relevant provided they're doing the things that you're having trouble with. That's my point. That's my point. But it's just finding out that niche on what they're doing that is slowing you down, slowing me down, slowing whoever it is that are wanting to do it themselves down.
Yeah, I completely agree, which is why I'm obviously I'm shaking my head. Yes, to everything. Absolutely nothing more needs to be said about that, though. But what I'm sorely getting at is as long as if you have two parties doing the same thing for that said banding, pushing it in different avenues, that's crucial. If getting some bands, like I said, they get signed and only rely on that label to do everything, and it doesn't work. You still have to put in the footing, and most bands just won't do it. So
Yeah, but then it goes to what else is there to do? What else is there to do? That's
not being a band, it's it's you got to think like a businessman. At the end of the day, especially if you're a musician, I know it sucks. I know there are people that just want to be in the jam room, but it's not going to work if you have. I'm going to use this as an example. It's not going to work if you have 5 hens. You need that rooster, man. You need that. You need a couple of them. You need,
hmm
you need some chiefs. You need some
hmm
fucking some people who are gonna will be willing not just to be in the jam room, not just be willing to write the songs and go into the studio. You need some business people, or else you're not going to go anywhere. And most bands don't have those business people, the business minded people. That's all I'm saying. That's why I think having a record label is crucial and relevant still. Even the smaller labels, even the labels that only do the distros, like you're talking about trading CDs with other distros. That's one aspect to what I wouldn't be able to do, and nor do I want to do that. I want to be doing other things and letting those labels do that aspect. Like I'd much rather be doing the PR stuff because I think that's more fun to do anyways.
hmm Yeah.
So it's like the balancing act of what you want to accomplish. And most bands don't even want to accomplish any of that. It's not fun to them even to do the PR stuff.
hmm Right.
So I can't really answer it unless you just buckle down and put in the work to do it.
hmm Right.
So, but yeah, Shannon, any final thoughts on this particular subject?
No. I wish.
Right? We've pretty much covered it at this
I think.
point. So,
I think so.
but obviously, we're going to agree and disagree on certain points, and that's totally fine. That's what the discussion's all about. And obviously, the people listening in, if you're pulling your hair out, leave us a comment or whatever, or get back to us on what your opinions are of a record label today, because I think they're relevant, and obviously Shannon agrees as well on certain aspects that I might not agree on, but it's probably vice versa. But Shannon, before we go, what is the status now of Avenger?
We're still working on the recording. We're taking our time. We start the vocals sometime to get it knocked out. Other than that, we're just continuing on being who we are, rehearsing and writing, and we're doing it slow. We're taking our time, like I said. So there's really no rush, but yeah, we're all on the same page, and that's amazing, man, because it's been so long since everyone has been on the same page, and that to me is just it's amazing. It's impressive, and it makes you keep going. It keeps your fire inside going. So yeah.
Totally.
How about Madrast? What's going on with Madrast? There has to be new stuff, right?
Um, in all honesty, I haven't really been doing a lot with Madras as far as writing goes. I've been trying to heal myself from the hand injury and whatnot. So my health comes first, and I've been just concentrating more on the podcasting world, just because it's I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't. I'm not saying I don't um love being in Madras and whatnot, but just at this moment in time, I've been doing it for 15 years now, so it's nice to do something else outside of the band. You know what I mean? Having that like it's like you know what I'm talking about. You've been in the band for almost 20 years at this point, so I'm sure that doing this is just as much fun as playing in the band. I'm not saying that I'm not going to write or any of that aspect, but just for right now, I'm just enjoying this. And once I get that itch to start writing again, once I can start playing, my ass off, that's when I'm going to just go full force and crank out a couple more records, man. You know, so
There you
at
go.
this moment in time, we're all still here. We're all still healthy. There's really no need to kind of push the band at this point, and just because of the pandemic that we're in right now. So that's not where my focus lies.
Mm,
Is my point.
right.
But we're all still here. We're all still doing our thing. Yes, we will start playing some live shows, and yes, we will crank out some more killer new records. But just my focus is not on that right now. Just
Right
being
on.
completely honest. So,
There you
but
go.
don't fret. We're all still here. We all will still be here. And for another episode of Poppitt's Corner, guys, me and Shannon, we're out of here, guys. Cheers.